Hey guys, I'm going to be reviewing the Rolex Datejust, reference number 116234 today. First, let's start off with the packaging. It comes in this Rolex green kind of wood box, that wavy pattern on top, and then the Rolex crown kind of finishing off the look. It's got a interior pocket here which holds all the warranty information, booklet, all that kind of stuff. And then it's got this really cool kind of concave shape on both sides here, which houses the little pad that holds the watch. So this watch is actually my wife's watch. If you've seen my other video that kind of goes through my collection, I've talked about this before, but this is my wife's. It's a like I said, it's a 116234, which is a Rolex Datejust 36mm version. They also have the 41mm version. So kind of wanted to just go through a little bit of the history of the Datejust, because it is such a long-standing watch in the Rolex lineup. So this watch was actually introduced way back in 1945 to celebrate 40 years of Rolex being in business, and they unveiled it at a Jubilee celebration. So most of you know that is synonymous with the other bracelet option for this watch, which is called the Jubilee, and it's a lot more intricate and gives off a lot more light. And it became known as, it's because it was unveiled at a Jubilee celebration, they adopted that name for the other bracelet that's offered with the Datejust. So pretty cool story there. One cool thing about the Datejust is that it is the first automatic watch to have an automatically changing date. So before that, there was never a watch that would automatically advance the date after the hour struck midnight. So pretty cool. Another cool first for the Rolex Datejust is that it's the first watch to ever feature the signature Cyclops on the date. So the 1955 Datejust was the first watch to have that Cyclops on there. So there's a lot of cool things about the Datejust, and I think the sub and the GMT and a lot of the other ones kind of get a lot of the kind of make the news, so to speak, whereas this one kind of just stays under the radar. And but it's got some really cool pedigree behind it, which I think is really neat. It's been worn by tons of famous people. I mean, I think Eisenhower wore one, all kinds of people. So really a cool watch. This particular one is made in Rolex's 904 stainless steel, which they switched over to back, I think after the early 2000s, they switched over to it. So, working with this versus the standard 316 stainless steel is more difficult. It's harder. It's harder to work with. It's also a harder material. So they had to invest in different equipment. And I think in part the reason why their prices, I think, went up quite a bit when they made that switch. So this particular model does have the caliber 3135 movement, which dates back to 1988. So they've been using this movement for a while. It's robust. It's obviously in-house. It's a workhorse movement for Rolex, and it's one that's easy to service. It's easy to find parts for. So I think it's a great choice to have, especially when you're spending this type of money on a watch, to have something that's been around for that long, and you can assume that parts and servicing you won't run into any issues when and if you need to service it. So another thing about this watch is it is COSC certified. So it's got accuracy that is up there with the most highly advanced watches in the world. It's got a 50-hour power reserve, 31 joules with that 3135 movement. It's got a parachrome hairspring, so it is resistant to shock and magnetism to a certain extent. Let's get into kind of more like just the actual watch itself. We kind of talked about the movement quite a bit, which unfortunately I'm not skilled enough to open up the back for you. But one thing that is awesome about this watch compared to my Rolexes, I've got older models. I've got a 1999 sub, and I've got a 2006 GMT that have bracelets on them, and they're nice bracelets, but this is a whole other level. This locking clasp on here is just so cool. It's super secure. It feels really sturdy on the wrist, and it just gives an extra level of confidence when you have, you know, a Rolex on your wrist. It does. I think it gives you another level of assurance that it's not going anywhere. So really, really a great clasp. It does have micro adjust technology, which my other older Rolexes do not have. So that's a great feature if you're making little adjustments, if it's, you know, hot, or maybe you're gonna try to take this watch diving, something like that. You can make those little adjustments on the fly without any sort of tools. One thing about this watch that's different from my older Rolexes is the addition of this polished center link. So the edges here are, you know, traditional brushed stainless, whereas the centers are polished. So they can and do attract fingerprints easier, they attract scratches easier, but it does look dressier, and it does give kind of a cool contrast to just the traditional brush look. But that's something to keep in mind. I know if you're looking at getting one of these, is that it does attract nicks and fingerprints a lot easier than the traditional kind of brushed option. So this watch also has the gold fluted bezel on it. They also offer this watch with just a standard stainless steel bezel. So this is kind of the more, I would say, iconic look to it, but you can certainly go with the other one. This one does add, you know, about $1,000 to the price, I believe, to get the white gold option. This has the blue dial to it with hand-applied luminous hour markers, hand-applied Rolex crown. I mean, it's so cool to think about all that stuff being applied by hand. And okay, now on the side, I'm trying to get this in focus for you. You can see on the side this little lip here on the inside of the watch. It says Rolex. It's stamped in there on the sides. I'm gonna see if I can get it here. You can kind of see it, but around the whole interior of the watch, it just says Rolex. And then on the bottom here, kind of between 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock, is the serial number. So extra anti-fraud protection. You can kind of see it right there, a couple of the numbers. You know, just there's so many copies of Rolexes out there now. They're constantly kind of trying to stay one step ahead of the counterfeiters, and certainly a really cool, intense process, I'm sure, to make that work. So pretty cool. Okay, so we talked about the twin lock. We talked about the clasp. Let's talk about the twin lock crown. So this watch does have a twin lock crown versus like my sub that has a triple lock on it, so it's even more water resistant, but this one is still definitely very water resistant. So we're going to advance the date. I'm going to show you the roulette dial, or the roulette date wheel. So it does alternate from black to red, and some people affectionately call that the roulette wheel. So kind of a neat feature. Here is the sound of it winding. So nice and smooth sounding. Crown goes in with no problem. So now let's talk about the size. Now it is 36 mils from end to end of the case, but you know, the modern Rolex is kind of, I think, started to wear bigger because they've made the case kind of a little fatter here at the lug end. So I kind of feel like this wears more like a 38. I'm going to give you a wrist shot here. For reference, I have a 7-inch wrist, and most of my watches are kind of in the 40 millimeter range. But I do think that this one fits pretty darn well, actually. So you can see, you know, the case stops pretty much right there at the top of my wrist, and it's a little short of the side, but it's pretty spot on. And it's really comfortable. I mean, I think I'm used to wearing obviously a bigger watch than this, and to have, you know, this little bit smaller option, it feels pretty good. So I would definitely love to own a Datejust at some point. I don't know if I would go the Jubilee band. It does kind of seem a little bit too dressy for me. I do like the Oyster, but I think I would probably go like this option with like my wife has, with the white gold bezel. I like the little bit of light that does catch, but I'd probably go with a lighter dial, maybe a silver dial or a white dial, and I definitely like the stick hour hands. I think that's a cool touch. So I mean, it's just a great everyday watch. You know, it's waterproof, so you can do some water activities with it. It's dressier, I think, than a sub or a GMT is. So it is maybe a touch more versatile than one of those options. You can find these used now for I think around 5,000, and I think the trap that I've fallen into as I keep looking at the older models, I think the 16013 and the models before they kind of flared out the lugs to make it wear a little bit bigger, and those are a lot more affordable. Those are about half the price. I think you can find one of those for as little as maybe $2,000 or $2,500, but it just doesn't wear as substantial as this one. So definitely try one of those on if you're kind of in between the two. I do think it is worth it if you have a larger wrist to go with the newer, more updated one with the wider lugs. I think it wears a little bit more substantial and has a little bit more heft to it. So just my 2 cents. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.